So, I'm moving house soon and prepping the animals while packing. Also not trying to miss any Sunday uploads if possible. As you can imagine, having a reptile shed and a 7-foot aquarium to break down and rebuild, it's a bit of a logistical nightmare. Not to mention I still have a job to go to and videos to make. Yet, I can't help but be distracted. The sun beetle enclosure has become a bit beaten up over time, and amongst all the mess, I fancy giving them a bit of a makeover. Their numbers have exploded. What started off as only a couple of beetles has now reached just under 20. The grubs grow for roughly 5 months before pupating and hatching out as a beetle. From this stage, the expected lifespan is 3 to 6 months. When they slowly die off one by one, the bodies tend to disappear before I've had the chance to remove them. But it seems the previous generation have all exhausted their lifespan around about the same time. Bodies and remnants of past beetles have begun to litter the enclosure, leaving a dreary atmosphere behind. As I mentioned in a previous video, the larger woodlice species have taken over the shed and inhabit almost every enclosure now. So I'm using this opportunity to change that. 3 trugs holding the larger species so I can rebuild bioactive enclosures with the bio crews that I choose, and hopefully keep it that way. They don't pose a threat to the beetles or the grubs, but I have a hunch they've been snacking on the eggs. The beetle population has been growing, but not near as fast as I would have expected it to. The eggs are a great source of calcium, protein, and essentially a little snack for the woodlice, meaning the only ones that stick around long enough to hatch are the ones that manage to stay tucked away. That does mean though, I've got the fun task of going through the soil and finding every beetle larvae that I can. Any that I miss will likely reveal themselves as beetles in the coming months with the woodlice, once I've set up the isopod only enclosure. After 3 odd hours sifting through the soil, removing the grubs to separate them from the woodlice and start anew, it became clear the growing beetle population had been laying eggs faster than the woodlice could find and consume them. From large larvae that are just weeks away from turning into beetles, to tiny grubs that must have hatched only a day or 2 ago. I did also come across 20 or so eggs, but being the genius I am, I managed to forget to record them before mixing them into the new enclosure's substrate at the end. Barren and dull, now revitalized, full of life and colour. Resembling a forest floor with branches for the beetles to climb up. The only thing left is to release them into their new world. Roughly 30 larvae of all different sizes, incredibly adept at digging. The back half has a much deeper soil layer they can call home. The grubs consume any uneaten food the beetles leave behind, but for the most part, they rely and thrive on the rotten wood scattered around the enclosure, performing an important role, breaking it back down into the soil. The beetles often bury themselves at night, and emerge at different times throughout the day to forage, feed and mate. So this provided the perfect opportunity to count the actual population. 17 beetles in total. I'll order some more grubs on occasion to avoid inbreeding down the line. And 12 closed pupae cocoons. So many more beetles on the way in the coming days or weeks. The grubs seal themselves in these self-made balls of soil. It may sound a bit grim, but they spread the contents of their gut across the wall of the cocoon, making a solid, tough ball to protect themselves in this delicate stage, while they undergo their transformation. As grubs, they'll often turn around and give a nasty pinch with their pincers. But as adults, they don't have this defense mechanism anymore. So instead, some curl up and tuck their legs in, making it difficult to get a grip on them. Whereas some of them opt for my least preferred method. They release some liquid excrement, giving off a foul odour I can only describe as rotten bananas, the type of smell that sits on your tongue. These colourful little beetles are a species of fruit beetle. In the wild, they'll climb trees in the search of fresh fruit, or forage amongst the leaf litter for any fallen, rotten fruit. They're not fussy, making them very easy to feed, and you can guarantee the grubs will clear up any uneaten food the adults leave behind. The adults can fly. However, they don't fully utilise their wings flying long distances like some other insects. But instead they use them more to cover short distances from one branch to another. To some extent, beetles make for unusual pets. A few years back I never would have imagined keeping some, certainly not becoming this invested in them. They're active, colourful and genuinely interesting animals. One day I'll show you the full metamorphosis process the grubs go through to become adult beetles. And maybe if we're lucky, see right from the eggs hatching. Without the woodlice in the enclosure, I imagine the beetle population will grow much faster than before, especially with all these new grubs coming so close to their final life stage. Sun beetles are a great beginner species too. They're not the most demanding or difficult to care for. Plus, unlike many beetles, sun beetles are unlikely to fight over space or branches, and instead often spend much of their time with others, in a peaceful, colourful vivarium. There's 5 other banana slices lying around. And you're really all gonna go for this one? Guess they know something I don't.